You know, this is really difficult to explain how much this means to me. It This bike was the bike that I had always dreamed about. It was wheels when I had no other way to get around.
I didn't know that.
And I had a difficult childhood. My father had some difficulties. He was damaged from when he was a baby. And he was a good man, but he had some problems, and I could not wait to get some wheels where I could get out and away from the family problems. And before I was even 12 years old, I bought a motorcycle or a motor scooter. That was a Powell motor scooter, and this was in 1946.
That's when you started riding, was in 46?
I actually rode some of my dad's motor-powered bicycles during World War II.
Okay.
He made a couple of them to ride to work building airplanes for the war.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, in 1944 or 45, I was big enough to fit on a bicycle. So I got to take the little motorized bike for a ride here and there,
Mm-hmm.
not very much. But in 1946, that is when I found that there were some motor scooters that I could ride. No, the police wouldn't bother me. So I bought a Powell motor scooter that was made in Los Angeles. And I lived in Northern California at the time. It had an old 40, well, let's put it this way. It had a Harley Davidson designed engine, 400 cc's, that's 24 cubic inches. Put out 7 rated horsepower.
7.
7 horsepower.
Uh-huh.
But at that time, 7 horsepower was more than any other motor scooter. Well, that thing was clocked by a adjacent automobile at 70 miles an hour.
70?
Yes.
With 7 horsepower?
7 horsepower. Yeah, but 24 cubic inches, see that
Uh-huh.
even a flathead and even a Harley.
Right.
But it was not a very good design. It was fairly fast. But the point here is, at that time, it was to scooters what the Hayabusa was in 1999 and 2000. If you wanted to go fast, the scooter world, that was the way to do it. In the late 90s, I bought an FJ 1200.
Okay.
And it was a good sport tourer. And I jacked up the horsepower a bit and lightened it up a bit, changed the wheels and the tires, everything. But 118 horsepower wasn't getting it done. I did make a classic semi-mistake. I was riding it one day going up in the mountains, Northern California. And I came to a place where I could hear motorcycles coming, the thunder, the Harley Davidsons. What is the outlaw bike group?
Oh, Hell's Angels.
Yeah, the Hells Angels. About, I guess it was probably 80 or 90 of them were coming down this road. And I came up to an intersection and I couldn't get on there in front of them. So I waited and they went by and went by and went by. Finally, they all got by. And I was well aware from a lot of the legend, you do not break into a group
Right.
of Hells Angels. So I either have to wait, and they were just always there going slow, 55 miles an hour, something like that. And they're strung out for a quarter of a mile.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, well, now's the time to find out what this thing will do. So I came up behind them at 140,
Uh-huh.
pulled out and hoped there would be nobody coming
Yeah, yeah.
because it could get ugly.
Right.
At 146 miles an hour, that FJ was tapped out, but I made it all the way around, and I thought, you know, these speeds are pretty good. I like this. I could have gotten in a lot of trouble, but I didn't. Well, let's fast forward again. 1999. I had looked at various other bikes. Honda had one that looked like it was pretty good, and Kawasaki had one that was pretty good, but there was nothing out there that just hit me like, this is it.
Mhm.
So I heard about the Hayabusa, and when Poway, California, this motorcycle dealer there, were going to get new Hayabusas. So I went to them, and I met a young salesman, Dave MD, and he was my salesman that sold me this bike.
Oh, wow.
And he was a former 250cc national champion. And so I was waiting around for it to get serviced and this and that, and just formed a friendship with him. And finally, he said, I've got the copper bike, and I've got black and silver,
Yep.
or black and gray, really. And I said, I don't want the copper. I know that's going to be the one to have, but I really want the black one.
Okay.
And so I got it, took my first ride, headed out east from Poway. And when I rolled on the throttle, every care that I ever had about being earthbound went away.
Yeah.
I was grinning from ear to ear, and I had told myself, this is what I've been waiting for. This is the bike that I've waited all my life for. Well, we had some adventures on it, and I got punted off the motorcycle one time by a woman in my own subdivision, stopped at a red light, and she came down a hill. She had a BMW and hit me at probably above 20 miles an hour in contact. And it launched me right out into the middle of the intersection. And I'm flying through the air, and all I'm thinking is, when I hit, I've got to roll left to get out of the way because she may be still coming through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get run over.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And that was my first time to hit the ground or the pavement off a motorcycle.
So just for clarification, because I don't think people know, you bought this bike 1999 brand new.
Yep.
At age 65.
That is true.
And you had been riding at that point in time for 53 or 54 years.
Right.
In 99.
I posted on LA Buses that I hit the pavement for the first time in 53 years.
It was 53.
Yes.
Okay.
And but I got up and I was able to walk, and was a little bit bruised, but that's about it. She was stoned out of her mind on drugs.
Oh, okay.
And the cops took her away.
So you bought this bike at 65.
Yes.
In 99, and this bike at that point in time was classified as the world's fastest production motorcycle. And you, I believe, just had a birthday a month ago, and you're now 92.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, you had told me in a recent phone conversation that you just decided recently to hang up your jacket and call it a career. And I'm assuming you had 76 or 77 years of motorcycle riding.
I've never counted, but that's probably about right.
So from 1946 to 2026 or 2025.
October 2025.
Okay, so it's been about 6 months.
Yep.
So we'll call it 54 plus 25. So we'll call it 77 years.
That's about right.
On motorcycles.
Yep.
And I'm just curious if this Hayabusa that we all call Phantom Busa, because that was your board name, is this the one that out of all the motorcycles you've owned over the years, was this the most special, or was there something else that tickled you inside as much as it sounded like this one did?
This is in a class of its own.
Okay.
Just like it was performance-wise when it was first built.
Mm-hmm.
It fulfilled my ability to get on it and be transformed into a different space. When I saw the speedometer climb into the big numbers, the cares of the world started falling away. And everybody has some times that they'd like to forget.
Mm-hmm.
But the easiest way to get past them to that point was to get on this bike and twist the throttle and see the speedometer going on the big ones.
Yeah. Well, I think for you and for me, because I've owned many Hayabusas and I've done land speed racing on them, I feel like, obviously that the Hayabusa is what connected you and I in friendship, but on a bigger scale, I feel like the Hayabusa has the same significance to both of us. Like, for me, that is the most significant motorcycle that I've ever owned. And it has a feeling when you're riding it that I don't feel on other bikes. It's heavier than some of my faster bikes, but it feels more planted to me. It's smoother. There's just so much. So I feel like you and I are in the same boat when it comes to the Hayabusa as far as like our love and passion for the bike. And I think that's why this one was so important to me when Greg and Kim finally decided that they were going to let it go. And, I wanted to rebuild it, and I kind of wanted to rebuild it to what you had built because, Greg and Kim are special to me, our forum that we were on special, and of course our friendship. So for me, it was like this huge honor to be able to rebuild this bike and like reunite you with it.
Well, it did not really start to become the Phantom bike until a few years later on the tight side of Palomar Mountain.
Okay.
A rider that we knew crashed in front of my friend Jeff.
I yard sailed that thing a little bit,
I had an FZ1 also, so he was visiting me from Maui.
Mm-hmm.
And I let him ride it. And it wasn't the Phantom bike at that time. It was still black and gray.
Don loaned me his Hayabusa, which was this beautiful, epically beautiful Hayabusa. Carbon fiber wheels, suspension was all dialed, it was tuned, it was a good bike.
But he had a choice to keep going straight and save the bike, or to run over the guy that had just crashed in the middle of the narrow road.
The bike went one way and he went the other way. I think he ran wide, and he was sliding feet first, and I was starting to lose vision of him as I got closer, so I knew it was bad, and my front tire was basically chasing his head, which is bad.
So he bailed to the right, went off the road, and down a culvert. He was flying through the air.
And actually collided with the guy mid-air at whatever speed we were going. And then I kind of dog paddled over him, and I remembered throwing him on the ground to kind of stick him to the ground because I could see there was a big cliff coming. And so I'm going to claim I was looking out for him, but I think I was just dog paddling over him. And so then I lost sight of him, and then the next thing I knew, the ground just totally dropped away, and I'm in the upper portions of oak trees. And I put one arm forward and was flying through the oak trees, and I remember thinking, the first branch, well, that didn't hurt too bad. The next branch, that didn't hurt too bad. I kept one arm out in front, and this arm kind of paddling through the branches. And then I thought, okay, that one hurt a little bit. That one didn't hurt. That one hurt a little bit. And then I saw at the bottom of the ravine a culvert that went under the road, and it was probably a 4-foot diameter culvert. And being from Hawaii, my first reaction was, there's rattlesnakes in there. We're in San Diego, it's hot. That's where a rattlesnake would hide. I don't know if that's true, but this is all in whatever a second and a half of flying through the air that all this happened. And so I remember thinking, I don't want to go in the culvert, no matter what. So I looked at it and went directly into the culvert, head first, about up to my waist, and it was full of brush about this deep, branches and stuff, and I was at that point pretty freaked out, had not done an assessment if I was broken bones or anything. And as soon as I pulled into the culvert, I turned around as quickly as I could. I pulled my legs into the culvert to turn around, and as I pulled my legs in, the Hayabusa landed upside down right where my legs were. And I paused for a moment, and I thought, okay, that's probably the only one, and scurried out and then looked up this mountain that I had to climb up, and I got about 25 feet up and ran into my buddy who was stuck on the side of the hill. And, the hill's like this. It's not a sheer cliff, but it's something you couldn't walk up or down. I was on my hand, crawling, climbing up it. And so we stopped, and, it's like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And we climbed to the top, and Don was back there, and I said, Don, I think I just bought your motorcycle. And he just said, that's the silliest damn thing I've ever heard. He said, you're my friend. Motorcycles are replaceable, friends are not. And that was a little spill I had on Don's Hayabusa, pumping it off a cliff. I think I was one of a couple people that crashed that bike.
The bike got banged up pretty good. So anyway, when the tow truck picked up the bike and we took it home, I decided at that time, here's my opportunity to rebuild the bike better than ever. And number one, I want it to be light. If it's any fault at all, it's heavier than it needs to be.
Yes.
And so I did everything I could to purchase aftermarket lighter stuff for the money I got, as long as it was cheaper than the replacement of OEM parts.
Right.
Because, you just don't, there's nothing ethically wrong with doing that. And you can end up with a much lighter bike, and with the amount of power that they have anyway, good handling. So I rebuilt it and had it repainted in the colors of John Player's Formula One race cars.
Mm-hmm.
I always had heard that was the most beautiful race car ever made. And I wanted to duplicate that if possible with a motorcycle. And here it is. It's an exact duplicate, but only short two wheels.
Yeah, and you did an amazing job on it. As you and I've talked about, when you owned the bike, you would always say that everywhere you went, people wanted to talk to you about the bike, or they're giving you thumbs ups at stoplights.
Yep.
And, you know, having just recently finished this bike in the last couple weeks and having put about 400 or 500 miles on it around town, I'm still getting exactly the same experience that you've described.
Yep.
I literally cannot go anywhere without a thumbs up at a stoplight, or, hey, that's a badass bike. Or,
Yep.
you know, I was at the DMV the other day and there was an old veteran there, you know, with oxygen, and he was like, that thing's amazing. And I mean, that guy was probably 75, 80 years old. And it's like, you know, that the colors of that bike and the way that it presents, I think it just grabs people's attention.
Well, I did it on a budget, and partially with insurance money that was just equivalent to OEM stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on a budget.
Right.
And what you have built here is something that deserves concord. It's that good.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Don.
It's the most beautiful sport bike I've ever seen, to me.
Yeah, I that bike's 27 years old, and obviously having owned many motorcycles such as yourself, I don't know, just the soul that bike has. Like, I still feel it,
Yeah.
you know, when I get on it now. It's just a different feeling. So, but you know, understand where it's at now is just a continuation of the vision that you had. And, you know, I think it's a few pounds lighter now than what you had,
Right.
and it makes quite a bit more horsepower now.
Yep.
And while it's not a 2025, you know, BMW S1000 hyperbike, I feel like this bike at 27 years old, with as much horsepower as it makes and as light as it is, I feel like it can hurt some feelings, and, you know, it can hang.
At that point, it's on the rider then. If the rider is a little bit better, that's good enough.
Yeah.
You're still going to push that person on the S1000RR.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I can't tell you, like, what an honor it's been for me to, like, kind of resurrect your original vision. And doing it, I just was having the time of my life rebuilding this bike. But I got to tell you, like, starting it up and riding it down the street it's a whole nother feeling after pouring, you know, the last good solid 8, 9, 10 months into this thing. It's hard to describe what that thing feels like now.
Probably the one, I mean, I had a lot of people that would draw a crowd at a gas station, or if you stopped to get a bite to eat. But the one that really blew me away is I'm riding on I-5, coming back through Del Mar, and I hear somebody beeping a horn next to me, and I lean over. And there's a guy in a pickup truck right there. So I roll down my window, and he says, "That's the prettiest bike I've ever seen in my life."
Uh-huh.
Now that tells me that we're on the right track.
Yeah, it evokes emotion in people.
Yep.
It does. I think too, the bike for me, you know, considering what close friends you and I've been for the last 16, 17, 18 years, you know, it evokes a different emotion in me, because it represents a friend that's near and dear to me.
Yeah.
And as you well know, like, you know, motorcycles bring people together. This one certainly has.
Yep.
And a lot of our friendships were built based on the catalyst of a Hayabusa.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, like, is there any, like, moment on this bike that stands out in your mind as, like, maybe one of the most special moments, or were there several, or anything come to mind?
Well, there's a whole bunch of them. we don't have time for
Right.
all of them. But one, several of us in Hayabusa's were at Mother's Kitchen on Palomar Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two guys there, young guys that were just back from the sandbox, Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
It was a few years ago, of course.
Of course.
And they asked us about Hayabusa's, and they looked at the bikes, and they said they had sport bikes, but not Hayabusas. And
Mm-hmm.
they said, "Do you guys ever let other people ride with you?" And we said, "Well, yeah, we do." And they said, "Well, we'd like to be included on your next ride if you'd allow it." And so we talked to them a few minutes, and they were both on good sport bikes. One was a Honda 1000, and I forget what the other one was, but anyway, it was a major sport bike.
Okay.
So we told them where to meet us, and they were there. And we headed out east. I'm not going to say exactly. And well, we went to Borrego Springs,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then out in the desert, there's some roads out there that get very few cars, very few motorcycles, and very few police. That's not a bad thing either.
No.
And so we headed out, and it's almost abandoned. But before we headed out on this particular road that runs all the way to Interstate 8, almost into the middle of the desert, we pulled over and made a stop. And I gave about a 5-minute introduction to what they were going to see on that road, the things to watch out for. And I said, I'm going to stop about every 10 or 15 minutes and update you on what you're going to see next.
Okay.
And I wanted it to be kind of like the military does stuff.
Oh yeah. Structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we took off, and we had one of our members that has the most motorcycles in California, probably.
Okay.
And he had just gotten a new Harley, the 900cc little sport bike. And he usually, that's enough to keep up. But this was going to be an epic ride
Mm-hmm.
for those two guys, just back from war. So I stopped there, explained that, and we got on. And I was on the Phantom bike.
Okay.
And as usual, leading out, our guy that was on the little Harley said he maxed it out on speed. He's in the back. There were 8 or 9 riders. And he was indicating 135, and he couldn't keep the last guy in sight. You know who that is?
No.
Chris.
Oh, okay. Chris Dolan. Yeah.
And I stopped after about 15 minutes and explained what we're going to see next. There were sandy corners, but I said, you're not going to get any decreasing radius or this or that. Just sort of like you get at the track.
Right.
And we went probably almost 100 miles doing that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And came back in. And when we finished the ride, the two guys shook hands with him. And one of the guys said, I want you to know that is the fastest ride I have ever had in my life and the safest.
Uh-huh.
That just,
Yeah.
and this is the bike that you can do it all and you're safe.
Yeah. It's interesting when you said that, because part of our history as friends is I was on my '05 Hayabusa at the time. And when you and I started riding 15, 16, 17 years ago, and you were on, I believe, your Ducati Monster, and we used to go, and I was in my early 30s and you were in your late 70s. And people never believed me when they'd see videos that, you know, the guy that I'm videoing you is 77. Because we're out there just ripping up all the twisties like Montezuma Grade, Palomar. You know, I forgot half the damn names of the roads we used to ride. We used to do Sunrise Highway. And like you and I used to go to breakfast a couple times a month. And we never went anywhere slow.
No.
It was always ripping. And so when you mentioned that story, that kind of brought up some old memories for me, because that's where like my bond with you started, was you and I in our Saturday or Sunday morning rips to whatever destination we were going to do at, you know, triple digits.
Yep. Well, that Monster was it's probably the prettiest bike I've ever owned. It's outside of this one. It was gorgeous. Ducati does that well.
Yep, they do.
But it was gutless.
Yep.
I could not actually ride it as fast as I wanted.
It's kind of hard going from like something like that to a 1100 Ducati.
I let it go and didn't look back.
Yeah.
Most of the time, after that, I rode FZ1s.
Yep.
Because it has a more civilized riding position.
Right.
And when you're over 80, that means quite a bit.
Yeah. So you, I mean, we've had lots of conversations, but I think it's safe to say into your 90s, like 90, 91, you were still riding Palomar pretty fast.
Yeah.
On an FZ, and obviously, you know, riding with Chris and, you know, doing the same thing that we used to do almost 20 years ago.
I think probably I rode my fastest rides on Palomar Mountain later in my 70s, in my 80s, I mean.
Would you attest that to just knowledge and skill as you got older?
I knew the road a lot better.
You knew the road better. Okay.
But if I did go faster on the Palomar, a lot of it is really tight. And if you have a competition bike, and my friend Chris had a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I think I was probably, particularly on the tight side of Palomar, 7 miles of one kinky, twisty after another.
Yeah.
I probably was a little faster on one of his competition bikes than I was on the Phantom bike. But if you got out on the highway or into something that's not quite as tight, yes, I had it all over everything I ever rode.
Yeah, I think too, like on the Hayabusa, you know, it kind of was the jack of all trades.
Yep.
But I also think people don't realize that, like, you know, back in the day, guys like you and I were, you know, everybody considered that a straight line bike.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think back in the day when we were riding these things pretty hard, we hurt a lot of people's feelings on Palomar with Hayabusas.
Right.
You know, they absolutely turn. Yes, they're heavy. They're not a Gixxer 1000 or a CBR-RR, but make no mistake about it, it's still a very, very capable bike. And that's where my love of sport bikes grew, was Palomar Mountain on a Hayabusa.
Well, I rode it one time with Poway Motorcycle. We went to a tour of Arizona, and we covered almost every highway in Arizona. Well, there were 7 or 8 of us that took a trek from Southern California, San Diego, to Arizona, and we started not far from Phoenix and ended up by the northwest corner and actually into New Mexico. The elevation's over 7,000 feet, and it's very, very windy and twisty, and the road was often dirty and full of rocks. So I was on the Phantom bike, and there were two guys much younger, half my age. This was probably 2003, I guess, or 3 or 4. And we get up in the Mogollon Rim area in the northeast corner of Arizona. And they had one gas pump up there, and we filled up one by one their tanks to head out of there. And I was next to the last one in the line to fill my tank. I filled it, and the guy, one of the Ducati riders, was behind me, and the other one was in front of me. So we're headed out from there and headed down to central Arizona. And the leader was the guy that I mentioned that won his class and had a big willow 2 years in a row. He's a racer, lifetime. Owned a motorcycle shop also. And we head out, and I'm closing in on catching. See, they all took off as they got filled up. And they weren't riding all the way because they didn't, they weren't trying to get away from us. But anyway, I close in on the guy in front of me. When he sees me, then he speeds up. And I was comfortable with that. And then I noticed, here comes the guy on the other Ducati. Young guy, he was probably in his early 30s. And I see him coming up a little bit, so I'm on the Phantom bike. And every time I see him get a little closer, I just crank on a little more throttle. He'd disappear. That happened for about 80, 90 miles. Came around one tight climbing left-hand corner. A rock slide had fallen across the road. There was a sort of a roundabout way you could get through. But when you're already leaned over, almost all the way, that's a bit hairy.
Yeah.
But I managed to get through it. And the guy behind me, I guess he did too, but I put him far enough behind, I didn't see him. But then when we came to a stop, the guy that was behind me said, "How do you get that big thing through those tight turns?" He said, "Every time I got close to you, you disappeared." And I said, "Well, probably because I rode dirt for so long.
Right.
The tight stuff is easy for me,
Yeah.
even on this bike."
Yep.
And I found that to be the truth. California, Highway 33.
Yep.
I would close up on the fast guys in front of me because I knew from riding dirt exactly how to handle it.
It was a precise line.
Yeah.
Like you said, you I think you've mentioned before, like
Right.
on a dirt bike, like a knife edge with the front tire.
Yeah.
Because you're dodging boulders and rocks and ruts and.
But one of the reasons that the really, really tight stuff I learned from so much time in the dirt, because that's all twisting and turning,
Yeah.
balance, and you get the right line.
Yeah, I think you definitely gave me the gift of dirt biking because it was something that you and I started talking a lot about when you found out I was moving from California up to Nevada.
Yeah.
And that was kind of your old stomping grounds for you riding dirt bikes up there with Dick Mann at Pine Nuts in Gardnerville.
Yeah.
And it's kind of surreal because I ride Pine Nuts quite a bit, and every time I go up there, like I'm always thinking about like, oh, I wonder if Don and Dick Mann were ripping this same trail that I'm on right now.
Probably.
Probably, and like the pine nuts, much like pea vine. I don't know if you ever rode pea vine, but the pine nuts it's not a entry level place to ride. It can be, like there's areas, but there's so many washes and rocks and sand. So I'm just curious because of what you mentioned about getting through the rock pile on the slide with the guy, and he mentioned that to you. Like, what do you think it takes for a rider to ride at a high level?
The main thing that you need, and the reason why you may stop riding, is confidence.
Okay.
You have the ability, a lot of riders have the ability to really tear up the road. I mean, go fast, but they don't know it until they do it.
Right.
The best thing you can have is a world-class rider, or even just a very good rider in front of you that you can follow.
Mm-hmm.
There are places up in northern Nevada where you live.
Yeah.
There are ridges that are not over a foot wide, and places if you fall off, you're going to not stop rolling for hundreds of yards.
Right.
And I never would have had the guts to ride those at the speeds I rode, except I was following one world class and one national class rider in front of me that had no fear at all. They had confidence. But I knew if they rode it, chances are I could ride it.
Yeah, I think your point is like so spot on, because if I'm racing a dirt bike and there's a fast guy in front of me, I'm way more confident because I can see how his suspension's working or how he's setting up into a corner, and it's even the same at the racetrack.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm faster when there's a fast guy in front of me because it's like you're getting a tow.
Oh yeah.
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 So kind of in closing, I'm curious what you felt when you walked in here today and you saw Phantom Busa restored, because I felt like maybe I saw a hint of emotion. So I'm just curious as to if you could elaborate on your feelings when you walked in here today and you saw the bike.
Well, what you saw is a guy that was almost broke down. The bike meant so much.
Yeah.
And what meant even more than the bike is that I have friends that would do something like this just out of friendship.
Yeah.
In regard for each other.
Yeah. I think it's why the bike means so much to me. Like I had mentioned earlier, between all the stories with all of our friends and the adventures that they've had on this bike, and like the crashes, and Greg and Kim owning it, and you owning it, and Jeff having a crash on it, and like all your adventures with Billy and Chris, like it just means a lot to me too.
Kimberly and I had some great adventures too.
Oh, yeah.
The Sierra Nevadas and Arizona and all around here, and
Yep.
LA, all the great roads up north of Malibu, and yeah, it's been a great. We took it to Georgia too. She rode Beals Gap with this, and sure, all the Skyway, and
yeah, I think it just, in our crew, that has been together for so many years now, like that bike is one of the most iconic bikes in the group, and that bike's been in that group since '99.
Yep.
Yep.
So like I had always mentioned, like that thing means so much to me. It's going in the trust. It's not going to leave the family. The daughter already wants it, which makes me happy, because I know she knows how much that bike means to me.
Yeah.
Which tells me that thing's always going to be taken care of.
Yep. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Has she ridden it yet?
Against my better judgment, no, Don.
I didn't think so.
No. Jeff had mentioned something to her the other day about if anything ever happens to my dad, and she like cut him off, and she's like, "That's my bike." She knows she's getting it. She knows what it means to me. She knows what it means in our friend group. So it's it's a special motorcycle, but I think what makes it special is all the people that have memories with it, and like all the adventures and the crashes. I mean, that thing's got 4 or 5 crashes on it, and it's 27 years old now. You know, it's like I tell people it's my 68 Camaro. You know, it was your dream bike in 65, or sorry, at 65 and 99, and in 2026, it's my dream bike. So, any final words, Mr. Irvine?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered it pretty well now. I'm very, very pleased that you are going to have the bike and it has a good home,
Yeah,
because I love that bike.
yeah. Mr. Park, anything you want to finally finish up on?
Just, you know, we had our fun with it too after you said you're going to sell it, and I talked to you, and I remember leaning over saying, "Hey Kim, you want a Hayabusa?" And she goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, we'll take it." No, it's not like negotiation or anything. It's like, "Yep, we'll take it." I knew what a nice bike it was. I ridden with Don enough times that I'm like, "Yeah, that's the one we want."
I think
Perfect.
I think to that point too, Greg. It was a similar situation with me trying to get you to sell it to me.
Yeah.
It took me over a year to get you to sell that to me. Like,
You think, well, I'm going to fix it up, and I'd never done that nice of a job. I mean, it would have looked. Don't get me wrong, I had it painted nicer than that, but you know. I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, it's been gone through. It would have still had the stock engine in it for sure.
Remember the ride we had in and out of Frenchman Meadows?
Was that up Gardnerville area? When we were up north?
No, that was in a way it was. It was over by Lake Tahoe.
you're talking about Frenchman's
okay, yeah.
Frenchman's Reservoir.
We were based out of Gardnerville that week. And
Right,
yeah, with Billy and I and Stan.
Yeah. That was 35 miles of nothing but
Oh, yeah.
twisties each way.
Was that wasn't over Sonora Pass? That was over like Luther Pass or Carson Pass.
I remember you guys stopped and we're going to get an ice cream, and I'm like, I'm going to go ride Monitor Pass again.
Oh, it was a Monitor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I ripped down Monitor to the end and came back, and you guys were finishing up ice cream.
That's a great road.
Oh, it's one of my favorite roads. It's a fast road, not super tight, so you can really roll.
Yeah. I was trying to think of that road, though, that I was talking about. It's 35 miles of almost deserted going into the reservoir.
Yeah.
And it's just one road. Like
I think the last time you and I rode sport bikes together was probably 8-10 years ago, and you had come up with your FZ, and I had my 05 Hayabusa, and we went and rode Monitor all day. We were just back and forth.
Yeah.
And it was just like I hadn't ridden with you for probably 7-8 years, and it was just like old times. Yeah.
I remember we stopped by Dick Mann's house, but he wasn't home.
Yeah.
He's like, and I'm like, "You knew Dick Mann?" I'm like, he's like, "Oh yeah, we used to ride together." I'm like, so you stopped by and we knocked on the door and nobody answered.
Yeah, there was I thought it was really cool when Greg sold me the bike, and like I was trying to figure out how to get it up here, and I told you I bought it, and you like instantly, without even asking, you were like, I'll pick it up from Greg and I'll deliver it. And I'm like, no, you don't have to. And he's like, you said, well, I want to take it on one last adventure or something like that, or one last trip. And, you know, you delivered the bike to me. This was 5 years ago, April of 2021.
That's right.
And it sat, I did a little bit to it, and it sat for probably a good 3 years. And then the last 2 years I started to get into it, but the last year we just kind of, and I don't know that I ever had plans for it to be what it is, but it just kind of morphed. I just wanted to make it roadworthy again, and I don't know. I think I took it too far, but
grew a mind of its own, and so this is what you're doing with me.
It absolutely did. It absolutely did. Yeah.
I know. Greg asked me one time after he had it for a while if I ever had the forks rebuilt, and I thought back and I thought, well, after that mudslide, I took it to Poway Motorcycle. First of all, I washed it and dried it off. Took it there and told him what happened and said, fix it. And I don't really know to this day exactly what they did.
What happened to your old forks? was all that dirt got in there, and they got vertical scratches. And so
Uh-huh.
even with new, I think I put seals in them, and they still leak because they just had these vertical scratches from all the crap they got
Yeah.
in there from that mud wreck.
Yeah.
And so
They never leaked while
Yeah,
I had it, or at first when you had it.
yeah, and then but at any rate, somebody on the board had a brand new set of 2003 shocks, which were gold. And I said, that sounds like a path of least resistance. Just get these brand new 03 shocks, and I had Race Tech go through them and respring them
And
differently, and
honestly,
that's those forks there.
honestly, the gold and the black fork fits on that bike, and the color scheme with the whole John Player thing.
That's why I did it too. It's like, these are gold. They look great.
But I don't think the silver fork would look as good on that bike.
No,
so the
for
black
sure.
and the gold, just tie that whole front end back up, together.
Yeah.
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 No, I was really happy when I did them.
Wow. Well, Don, thank you for making the trip up. I'm ecstatic that was able to put you and the old stallion back together. And Mr. Park, I appreciate you hosting. And I'm glad that you were open to putting this on video because it is important to me. So
It's been fun.
thank you, Don. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
All right. Cool.
I can't wait to see what your editor comes up with.
Oh yeah, Max is a badass.